Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. Presented by Carolina Lightweights. Come get with us. When the action begins in the studio, our referees for tonight's event are Elgato Azul and Carolina Real Streamers. For the viewers in attendance and Facebook and YouTube users around the world, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Live from the Elgato Azul TV studio in Louisville, Texas, it's time! What's up, slime lovers? Welcome to the Slime Show, baby. I'm your host, Chris, a.k.a. Elgato Azul. My partner in slime over here is Mr. Jamie Dunn, Carolina Lightweights.
What's up, everybody?
How's everybody doing tonight? We're going to do a show tonight on rigging. So, the evolution of the Catfish rig. It's come a long way since I first started using them. So,
there's a lot of them.
When I first started, we used 5/0 Kale hooks, egg weights on a Carolina rig. Now,
the floodgates has opened on them, brother.
Yeah, there's all different little things we do to these rigs these days, and a lot of guys don't even have any idea why. They just see somebody else doing it and say, "Oh, that looks cool. I'm going to do it." So we'll go discuss kind of the reason why guys are doing some of this stuff, why I like the rig I like, why Jamie likes the rigs he likes. He's a rig tying expert. He ties more rigs than anybody you'll ever meet because he does it for a living. So, going up from, for instance, 3 years ago, I used 60-pound mono. Now I use 80. I used to use a Palomar knot at all my connections. Now I use a crimp at one of my connections. And, from the rattles to the, now Jamie's putting blades on them.
Yeah. We got the shockwaves, putting the shockwaves on there, putting the stunners on there, putting the Carolina twisters on there. We are tearing the water up, man. We are waking up the sleeping catfish for sure.
We got Bruce Journey in the house. Welcome in, Bruce. I got got my new signature series weights in, Bill. I'm going to send you some of my Gen 1s. They are the old ones from 3 years ago, but they still work the same. They make them now. They're rust proof. And the old ones had steel shot in them. So I'll send you some of my old ones. I just figured I might as well be using my signature weights. So Jamie and Rebecca sent me some new ones. And I'm just going to start giving away some of my old ones to people.
Man, when you can't lose them, you might as well give them away, Chris.
Yeah, one of my other sponsors is Demon Dragon. He's like, "What do you need?" I'm like, "I don't need anything." He's like, "Well, it's been 2 years since you got Demon, you still using Demon Dragons?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just not losing them anymore for switching to Carolina Lightweights." So they will save you money. And I've used them all. So we got Billy Bever in the house, my Texas slime brother, our Carolina Lightweights partner. Welcome in, Billy. We got Rich Segura over at Operation Vets with Nets. He's also one of our Carolina Lightweights teammates. We got Jeff Martin, one of my hometown boys. What's up, Jeffrey? We got Eagle Eyes TN to welcome in, Juan. Love seeing what y'all are doing out west.
Yes, sir.
You're killing it with the Ethanator. Love it, man. Keep it up, bro. Justin Schurg,
Welcome in. James Atkinson. What's up? Smoky Mountain Catfishing. It's slime time, baby. Micah Burkhart, King of Tennessee. Welcome in, Micah.
Welcome in, brother.
Good fit. Well, he stays on them. So, what's new? Rebecca's in the house. Welcome in, Rebecca.
Yeah, Chris, we were just doing a lot of the Micah Burkhart solid black ones also. Man, we got a lot of them going out, brother.
Got Kevin Silent Fishing. So welcome in, everybody. We're gonna go over some rigs. We'll start with the basics. Jamie, you're still tying a basic Santee rig. What are you calling that one?
Man, this is what we call the Carolina Lake Shaker rig, man. It's a fairly simple Santee style rig with your rattle in the float.
That's an EVA float.
The brand new EVA floats here at Carolina Lake Weights, 3-inch EVA floats with the rattle inside. Of course, you top right there, regular little stub nut.
Had those EVA floats a couple of months now. They pretty popular.
Yeah, Chris, I tell you, man, we probably have done well over 300 packs of them already, man. Within the last couple of months.
Y'all put that rattle in there on the Lake Shaker rig?
Yep. Yeah.
Y'all been selling that Lake Shaker rig for a long time, right?
Yeah, Chris, we have been doing that
like
Lake
that
Shaker
rig. I mean, they like that rattle in that EVA.
Yeah,
float.
A lot of people are loving it, man. We hear a lot of good things about it. We started out with there you go. We've been doing the rattles in them for about 3 years now. We were doing them with the regular the regular floats like this, the Lake Shakers.
Yeah.
Now we're switching everything over to the EVA floats like this right here. So
yeah,
it's the
the EVAs. I ran those things for years.
Yeah.
And it was really probably 10 years ago when I was running those EVA floats. And I prefer them for anchoring. I don't like them dragging. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to shoot you guys straight. I don't like them for dragging. I'll tell you why I don't like them for dragging, because they get hung up a lot more than an inline rattle. I think they work great for anchoring. I don't really put a whole lot of rattles on them when I'm using that rig to anchor. I'm usually really shallow. I like to be able to move that pegged float up and down. If I'm up in 2 feet of water, I can keep my bait from basically floating on top. But when I'm dragging, I've noticed that EVA float gets hung up 10 times, and I'm not exaggerating. It gets hung up 10 times more than an inline rattle. So I think for me, that's an anchor. That's for anchoring. And guys say they don't want to spend the money on the inline rattle, but if you're losing stuff because I'll show you where it gets hung. I use these when I'm up shallow, but when this thing's dragging and you get hung on something, this nose is rigid. And what I would find is I would bring these things back to the boat, and my line would be cut halfway through this EVA float because I'm ripping it through stuff. So I do still use them. I use them when I'm anchoring.
Yeah. And I went and switched over to Facebook real fast. I want to make something clear too, guys. The EVA floats do not come with the rattles inside of them. We actually put the rattles inside of the EVA floats. So they do not come with the rattle inside of them. Now, when we do sell the Carolina Lake Shakers, the rattles are on all the rigs like this right here. Now, when you buy the EVA floats like Chris just showed, they do not have the rattles inside of them. So I just wanted to, I saw some comments there. I just want to clear that up a little bit, but
Another thing that I think, when you're anchoring, I don't believe rattles are quite as important when you're anchoring in the lake, because you're going to where the fish are at, and then you're using you're flooding that area with scent, and they're coming in for that. And a lot of times when I'm anchoring, I'm on a spot where I know they're going to be coming through. So it's like, a shoreline, a windblown shoreline leading into a creek after it's rained. Well, I know fish are moving up and down that shoreline as they're moving into that creek mouth. They're going to find my bait. I think when you're dragging, though, that rattle makes a big difference. And let me find a rattle.
You got
Here's
one right
why I think they work when they're dragging. When you're dragging, this is the sound it makes. When you're on anchor, this is the sound that it makes. A pegged float. Ain't much rattling going on. When you're dragging one of these, it's got a lot more sound. So in my mind, that's why I prefer that. This is also more streamlined, so you don't get, it doesn't have a real squared off nose like a peg float, so it doesn't get hung up as much. It comes through damn near everything. When I'm anchoring up shallow, I'm not worried so much about that. But when I'm dragging through stump fields and stuff, it makes to me it makes a big difference. So,
and Chris, that's
not
like
big, but that's why I do it.
Yeah. And that's like when we come up here at Carolina Lake Weights, we were designing the shockwave rig, the stunners, and the rattles, and the Carolina twisters. You notice right there, when we done it is because we rounded it off right here. That way,
I think that makes a big difference from losing crap. If it's got a squared off nose, when I used to have dragging weights that had a squared off nose, I'd lose 10 times as many as I lose now.
Yeah.
When I was using those peg floats to drag with, I was losing 10 times as maybe more as what I lose from an inline rattle. So,
and I can tell you, a lot of people has picked up on, like, this right here is the stunner, guys. This is the stunner rattle, and we have a lot of people that says, man, we have picked up the way these things are dragging. They're dragging very smooth. They're not getting caught up in jerky feeling. I mean,
what do y'all call this one?
That's the shockwave. That's this one right here, Chris. That's the shockwave right there, brother. So
that's a good rattle too.
And you notice you barely have to move it.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to make a little sound.
No.
Now, I see guys when they're showing their rattles off and stuff, they're doing this. That's not what the freaking rattle's doing in the water.
That's it.
So take the rattle and play with it kind of like a wave action, or like when you're dragging. That's the sound it's going to make. So, some of them, you rattle them like this. If this thing was a peg float that's sitting like this, it won't make any sound. Not do anything. To me, it's pointless.
That's it.
But when you're dragging, you get a little sound from it.
And if you take that, Chris, right here, like the stunner, and you got your basically your CLW rattles right here, you hear that right there out the stunners.
Yeah. And they don't have to make a lot of sound. No. The bait fish, when they're being predated, they're not making this sound.
Yeah, that's it. And you barely have to move them. And yes, guys,
these hear this. They hear that.
That's
They're
it.
Expect it.
That's it. So that's why we went in development. And when we started these things, you notice even on the Carolina Twister, we added
what y'all done with y'all's inline rattles, because if you are fishing current, you don't need any wave action. If you're anchored, this thing will make some sound.
That's right. And that's like this. We added more curvature and we added extra fins, guys. You get more of a twist and you get more of that rattle sound. It catches that water and twists it even faster.
Rich, you'd be surprised at what'll float with one of these They will float a big bait. They're
Yeah.
very buoyant.
Yeah. These things right here will float more than a 3-inch, a 4-inch peg floats. These are very buoyant. I mean, they will float a big bait.
Yeah.
And we, like I said, man, people have found out the way they drag with the nose. There's nothing getting caught right here. It's all nice and smooth. I mean,
I'd agree. I like them. I don't know which one works best.
honestly, Chris, the Carolina Twisters, the Shockwaves, and our stunners, they all sell great, man. It's everything we can do to stay up with it. People, like
I know what
said,
works what works the least out of all my rattles. I know which ones work the least. If I was just to rig with these by themselves, these get outperformed way more than anything else. But I think it might be because these fill up with water over time. If you're dragging and these have got water in them, they're not making a whole lot of sound. I believe that might be why these don't work very good for very long. But I use these in conjunction with all my other stuff. My idea is this adds a little bit of float to my big baits. So I put these closer back by my big baits in hopes that it'll kind of keep my bait up a little bit better.
and guys, I see y'all asking questions already over on the Facebook side. These are how we set the Shockwave rigs up right here. This has enough room right here. It stays in place. Does not move just enough to keep it free spilt like that right there. Y'all see that? It doesn't take much.
I'll rig them up with nothing else besides just that. I use these high seas crimps. I use 80-pound mono for my leaders. So I'm using these high seas oval crimps.
Yep.
They're a size 1 oval crimp from high seas. And then I just crimp this thing into position. If you want it to move, just don't crimp it all the way down. Just crimp it down tight where you can slide the crimps up and down the line, and then it's still movable. But for me, when I use these, I usually put these pretty close to the bottom. So I got pretty short leaders on these. It's just what I do. I mean, I use so for my short leader rigs, I like to use these. And I like to use these. I'll use these with no other rattle because these are as loud as anything you'll use.
That's it. And just like guys like Chris showing there, that's it.
They're loud.
Yeah.
And they float. These will float a lot. Big bait.
You see that how right there, guys? Very little. I mean, very little right there that you have to touch that to spin. This is one of the ways I do it. I'll put a peg float on it also, guys. You can set it up like that.
That's more for current.
That's right. This is going to be a good river.
Light current.
That's it. I love this setup right here for the river, Chris. When you're anchored up, this setup right here for the river, it just works very well, man.
I even rig some of my shallow water rigs up like that. If I know I'm going to be fishing like a windblown point and there's going to be some wave action up there, instead of just running just a straight Carolina or just a regular old Santee rig, I'll add this little rattle on there, and I know every time there's a wave, it gives it just a little extra.
Yeah.
I don't know if it does anything, but in my mind, it's adding a little something extra to my rig.
And Chris, there's been a lot of different rigs out there. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to say bad things about other people's. I'm not going to do that, guys. I know there's some people like, man, tell us the truth about this. Well, you see a lot of these right here are put on backwards. People are putting them on backwards.
I see that rigs. A lot. I'm like, okay, that's backwards.
I can tell you, us here, the Carolina Lakeways, I am putting it on what I feel, my opinion, is the proper way.
Listen, that's the way you're going through. If you're in some type of cover like logs, rocks, and you're going through it, that's going to come through it. The other thing is hydrodynamics, water flow. When water's flowing in that direction, that's going to make the thing spin. When it's going backwards, it's not going to spin right.
And Chris, you're right, man. Just think, guys, if you got this part right here, all right, you see how I got it set up. But if you're dragging this, what's that doing, man? That's going to catch that flat. Yeah. That right there is going to catch.
That's going to be hung up. You're going to be broken off.
That's it. And I know there's people out there, guys, and like I said, this is our opinion only, in my opinion, is, to me, this is the proper way to
I agree.
Rig it on your line.
Common sense tells you to rig it that way.
That's it. And I understand now, and this leads into another point too, Chris. There's a lot of stylish rigs out there.
Hey, look good, feel good, fish good.
That's right. That's right.
That too. I don't care what guys say. You don't need all the. Yeah, you don't. You don't need to buy Air Jordans. You don't need a nice Chevy pickup truck either. Yep. You can go buy a beater. You know, you don't have to have the nice boat. You don't have to have nice rods either. But damn, it sure does feel good to have nice equipment when you're out there doing it all the time. And you know, to me, I'm kind of like, you know, I take pride in my rigs and the way I tie them, and I'm very meticulous on how I like them. I feel like it does make a difference to me. It makes a difference. So if I got confidence in what I'm tying and the way I'm using them, and they're working for me, that's makes me feel good about it. So that's why I do them the way I do them, because I got confidence in the way I've been doing. My rig changes a little bit every year, you know, and has for the last 30 years. You know, every year it's a little bit different than the year before, and I try to tweak it a little bit to improve it. Guys keep saying, "Oh, there's not much more you can do to a rig." Well, I think that's been proven to be not the case, because my rigs, I thought I was a pretty good fisherman 10 years ago. But I guarantee you, the angler I am now will smoke that dude. And a lot of it has to do with presentation, the rigs.
That's it. And that's why, Chris, like I can tell you, I'm looking at a wall jam full of rigs right here. You know, I wish y'all guys could see it. It's crazy. But we have every style of rig pretty much. We have from your simple style rigs all the way to your, what I call your glitz, your glamour style rigs. Now, I'll tell you, I have caught catfish with every caught picking one of them that we put out right here. I have caught catfish with every one of them. And it goes back, like Chris, you were talking, you know, it's up to the angler.
Yeah.
You know,
I hear a lot of guys talking about the colorful beads like it's a Mardi Gras necklace, and they're making fun of you, basically.
Yeah.
But the bead is not there because it's colorful and you're trying to attract the fish. This bead is there as a spacer to space out things like rattles, to get the rattle away from the hook, you know, as bumpers to make things spin better. There's a reason for using bumper beads. It's not just because they're bright and colorful and it makes your rig look, you know, like a glow show type deal.
That's right. And I will tell, I want to point this out, guys. You see the hole right here that we have on the inside of these things right here. Okay, guys, we get questions all the time. Well, the more that twist, does it braid your line a lot? Well, guys, I can tell you, I've got some rigs I have had 6 months. I have had no failure because of the design that we do right here at Carolina Lake Wakes, the design that we do that helps prevent that from happening. This is a very smooth inside, and I know there's a lot of people in here in our chat that has used these products that can also back it up, that, you know, you got to be careful on certain things that you do to not braid your line, or frayed your line, excuse me. So I wanted to point that out, Chris, you know, to everybody, because that's a very important subject also.
So, but plastic beads, you can use plastic, you can use glass, you can use rubber. Plastic and glass are made for bumper bead or for spacer beads. You can use glass beads if you want them to help make a little extra sound. And the plastic spacer beads they're spacer beads. They're used to space things out. And the rubber bumper beads are used to protect things like knots, or if you're crimping, if you're trying to crimp stuff to keep it in place, like an inline rattle. If you're crimping it in place, you can put a rubber bead over the top of that crimp. Now, is it necessary? Hell, you can catch them without the rubber bead too. I don't put the rubber bead on mine, but I know a lot of guys do. They just like the way that it looks. It cleans up the rig. Makes it look like it came out of the factory. That's what Jamie does.
Yeah. And a lot of guys say, man, well, what are you using to be able to stop your stuff? And what I do, guys, and right here, you can see I've got what we call the jelly poppers. We have them right here at Carolina Lake Weights. We go through. We sell tons of them. We got them in green and red. And I put this right over the top of that crimp. And what I do is, yes, I'm using that as a stopper, but I am doing that to dress up these rigs that we sell also. And it works fairly good. I'm going to tell you guys, it really does. It hides a lot of that stuff. It makes the rig look good. That's why we do it right here. But, I get asked a lot of times, why do y'all not tie knots on your rattles right here? Well, guys, the zip tie that we have right here, we got it so you can take this and slide it just like that up and down the rig, guys, just like that. Some days, they might want that bait further away from that rattle. Some days they might want it a little bit closer. Some days you might want to float your baits a little bit higher. Some days you might want to float it a little bit lower. But that's why we do a lot of that right there, guys.
Yeah, I learned that little trick from my Demon Dragon teammates, and some of them had put a piece of tape around it. Some of them had put a zip tie around the whole deal. I started zip tying around it. Jamie started making rigs, and I'm like, hey, because a lot of guys, they'll run the thing through the eyes and then they'll loop it back through an eye. But when you do that, you're putting memory on that when it cinches down. And so when you move it, you weaken your leader a little bit. So I'm like, hey, I told Jamie these guys are using these zip ties around the Demon Dragon, and he's like, well, I'm going to try to get some smaller ones and put them through the eye, and it worked. So
and guys, like I said,
you figured out there, buddy.
Yeah, and that's all you need right there. Tractor Supply, Harbor Freight, man. You can get these little zip ties, put them in your tackle box, and it works perfect, man. It really does, guys. And they're not expensive. I'm probably a penny a piece, probably, guys. But they come in real handy, and it's very nice to have. That's for sure. Trying to go through, guys, while we're going through and see if I'm missing any comments or anything in chat. And guys, if y'all do have questions while we're on this subject, please, ask us. Feel free to ask us. That's for sure.
I always got guys asking me how I tie my stinger rig.
Yep.
So I'm going to tie one tonight.
But yeah, Richard, we call them the jelly poppers right here at Carolina Lake Weights. So, like I said, we do have them and plus, guys, this right here does glow when the light's out. But we do have them in green, and we do have them in red. So it's a very good thing. If y'all need them, guys, we do have them.
When I stinger rig, I run 10-aught hooks.
Kevin, we just talked about that real fast. Why does my rattles face the hook? To me, My opinion only. Everybody, like I said, I'm gonna go and cover that. I don't need a lot of people upset that that the reason why is look at it this way, and this is how I look at it. You got your hook, you got your line. You're pulling this through the water like this. If you take this, you turn it around, now you're pulling it like this. What's this piece right here doing? This is
Getting
basically,
hung up on everything it comes across.
yep.
You
This
won't have
right
that
here,
rig very long.
yep. This is almost like an anchor, guys. When you're pulling this, it's almost like an anchor. It's going to catch on everything. And that's why we designed the nose of these the way we do. So when you're pulling it forward, you hit a tree, it does like that. It don't basically come in and like, oh no, now it's stuck. Yes, they do float, and they do float up off the bottom, but a lot of times, guys, there's a lot of structure that we drag through off that bottom. It doesn't have to be just on the bottom, but you got a lot of trees. So keep that in mind. That's why I put everything forward. Just like that. But if you want to put them backwards, more power to you guys. I don't
They'll
know.
still work, but you will lose it a lot faster.
That's it. That's it. I don't knock anybody from doing how they want to. It's just a way that I feel that works better.
I'm gonna tie up a stinger rig. I start with a 10-aught. This is an Action Jackson hook 10-0 from Carolina Lake Weights. It's my son's signature hook. Start with about 4 feet of leader line, so you got some extra leader. This is 80-pound Mad Cat Structure Cat. It's been great leader line for me. I've been running it now for a couple of years. I start mine when I'm going to tie my stinger rig. You always start from the hook and work your way towards the leader. I use just a traditional Snell. I don't use the simple Snell because it comes loose. I use the simple Snell on my second hook, but my first hook, I just used the traditional Snell. I wrap it 10 times or so. There's the start of it. You got a 10-0 hook. That's going to be the stinger. I'm going to work my way up towards the leader. So next, I'm going to put another 10-aught hook on there. I've actually changed a little bit the way I'm doing these this year. I'm starting to put a rattle in between these just to help float the bait horizontally, but I'm going to just do a regular one today. You're going to want to space your hooks out to the size of your bait. I run about 10-inch baits in the winter, so I space mine out about 9 inches. And that's going to be able to put a hook in the nose and a hook in the tail. This second hook, I use the simple Snell. So you do the simple Snell, you wrap it 8 or 10 times. Back through the eye. And there's your stinger. It's going to be for whole big baits. Like for you guys back east, it's for big skipjack, half skipjacks and stuff like that. For us, it's going to be big gizzard shad with the tail chopped off. You can use carp fillets, whatever you got. It's big. From here, I go with an inline rattle. We'll use one of Jamie's rattles. I'm going to go with I don't know the names of all these. I can't keep up with them. What do you call that one,
The
Jamie?
Carolina, that's the Carolina Twister.
All right, I'm going to crimp these into position. I used to use spacer beads, but now I crimp them. Just less crap for me to deal with. Less things I got to feed onto the line. I use, again, number one, high seas crimp. These are made for 80-pound mono. You're going to put the crimp on. I put mine about an inch away from the hook, maybe inch and a half. Get your crimping tool. I go a size smaller than what it says for this size crimp. I've just found that crimps them on a little better. I haven't had any failures. 0 failures in almost, what's it been, 2.5 years since I've been crimping these. So crimp that on. Next, you go with the inline rattle.
Chris, real fast, what rattle are you putting in between your two? Okay, that's all.
Well,
there you go.
This is just a basic one, but I've been putting this rattle. I've got some that I'm putting this rattle in between these two hooks. And the reason I'm doing that is just to keep my bait, instead of floating down like this, if you're light wind or whatnot, your bait will start kind of drooping down like this. Whereas if you got that float, it'll ride a little more natural. So that's why I do that. I'll put this float or this rattle on here just for a little extra sound. If there's smaller fish coming and knocking this thing around, that'll give it a little extra sound. And then I crimp this on. This rig has broke countless records for us. It's a big fish rig. You won't catch many fish under 25 pounds with it, 30 pounds, but you will catch a ton of big fish on it. They like these whole baits. So I'm going to crimp this on so this rattle doesn't slide up and down my line. And here's what I'm working with. I'm riding like this, big 10-inch whole fish with the tail chopped off, inline rattle. From here, I go with a 5-inch big float. I've been running these Demon Dragon Brutes. They float giant baits. Jamie's got one. I don't know what y'all call it.
Yeah, we've got 5-inch ones here also. Chris, Rebecca, I can't remember right now. We got so many names.
So here's what I'm working with. I just feed this. This is a Demon Dragon Brute. This is a Monty's Revenge. It's kind of pinkish red. I don't know that color matters. I just give it something kind of natural. Pink is an injured fish. So from here, I zip tie this on. So we talked about the zip ties earlier. I'll show you the zip ties I'm using. Here's the zip tie. It's the smallest size I think you can get. These come off Amazon. I'm gonna put this one on the back eye, closest to the hook. The reason I put it on the back eye is it's one less thing to get snagged on if you're coming through a ball of mono. I would rather have it on the back than on the front. If you're using the smaller ones, I usually put it either on the back or on the bottom one. These Demon Dragon Brutes, they got 2 eyes, one on the front, one on the back. I put the zip tie on the back. You can buy these in bulk for like $10 for a whole box of them, maybe $8. They're cheap. And what this will do, then you just take that and you clip that off. What that'll do allows you to move this up. So let's say, on a good windy day, I'm dragging this rig. It's about 2.5 feet off the bottom. Let's say the wind dies and I don't want to tie on a bunch of new rigs. I can take this and pull it up here by my swivel. And now this thing's going to be floating closer down by the bottom. And that's the reason you want to be able to slide this up and down. That's what that little zip tie will do for you. Keeps it from putting memory on your line. From here, I'm going to crimp this on with my Roscoe swivel. So let me see if I lost. Yeah, here's a swivel. I think these are a 2-aught Roscoe swivel. They're 175-pound class swivel made in the USA. I don't know if it makes a difference. It's just what I've been using for 30 years.
Yeah. So
that's what I'm going to use. Works for me. So I've always stuck with it. I'm going to crimp it on. So again, the number one high seas crimp, you feed that through. Put your swivel on. Man, I'm 50. My eyesight's gone to hell.
That's why we got to get readers sometime, ain't it right, brother?
I'm fighting that. But there's how I snug it up. So there's my crimp. I don't give it a very big loop. The loop's pretty tight. Got the swivel. And there's the tornado.
What's up, buddy? And Chris, you speaking?
And I crimp it on. I'm gonna crimp this thing down as hard as I can with one hand. And that's it, man. Then I cut off all the tag ends. You can get yourself on an assembly line. You can start making these a lot faster, but I'm kind of going slow just to show you guys. But here's the total rig. You got the swivel, it's crimped on. Nice and clean. Jamie will put a rubber bumper bead over that.
Right. And guys, how Chris, just that one that he uses, I'm telling you, you watch Chris and Jackson, man, they're catching monster catfish off of it. But I put 2 on myself. You don't have to put 2 on, but I do it just for a little extra security and stuff like that.
One thing I've found is that's the reason that I use the size smaller on my crimping tool. So right there, it's got sizes. Okay, I don't use that 1.0. I use the one that's smaller than 1.0, the 0.8. So I use the smaller. Get out of here. I use the smaller one than the 1.0, and that it does not weaken it. I did a big test on these. It doesn't weaken it. It keeps it from slipping is what it does. So, yeah. And that's my stinger rig, and we use the hell out of these starting in October. So that's why I wanted to rig tonight. I'm like, well, we could do a show, and then I could get some of this work out of the way for the show.
Chris, I see. Now, you do a little bit different than what I do sometimes. How you do your weight on your rig?
So when I weight mine, I'm using. Let's see, where's my tackle?
Guys, while he's looking for that, I'm gonna show you the regular Santee rig right here that we were showing earlier. And all of our rigs that we have here at Carolina Lake Weights, basically, let me take this off. You see this end right here. Okay. basically here, right here, you could tie your main line right here.
Yeah.
Or you could tie your main line right here. But this hook right here, I just take it, do it like that, and that's a done deal.
So if I'm going to be like when I'm dragging, I prefer a sinker slide. Okay. This is my sinker slide. This is a Dr. Fish off Amazon. These are the smallest sinker slides you can buy. And I've tried them all. And these are supposed to be heavier duty and stronger. And I've found if you do get hung up, you lose your entire rig when you're using these. And to me, that thing hangs up a lot more. That little hook right there when you're on mono balls and stuff, you're dragging through stumps. This smaller one, it just doesn't hang up as much. And if it does, that little deal, you can pop that off it's not easy to do, but when you really yank on a hung up rig, that little ring right there will break and you'll get everything else back. So that's what I do. I rigged that with a bumper bead, a rubber bumper bead next to my swivel, then this, and a 2-ounce Carolina Lake weight.
And guys, that's why I like on the 2s and 3 ounce, you will see this small one right here. It's going to allow you to pull even more through a lot of stuff and not get hung up like Chris was talking about and catching. But I also will tell you too, y'all guys see this right here, this little divot right here.
Yeah.
I also encourage to take that and bend it upwards so it won't hang up as bad also, guys. But all those come on all of our 2s and 3 ounce weights and our 1 ounce weights. But if you'll take that little divot right here and bend it upwards, it's going to help you even drag even smoother too. I hope y'all were able to see that. I know it's kind of small.
Now, in the spring, I'll switch to a 3-way rig so that I can anchor and drag without having to manipulate my sinker slide, because when you're anchoring up shallow, your stuff will just be floating. But when I do that, I use a 3-way swivel and I use a Roscoe scissor clip. I use these, and these will not hang up.
Yep.
Little tricks.
And that's about the same thing as these guys also right here. These little clips, and I'll tell you, they work very well. Just like Chris is saying, you can use your anchor rig into your drifting rig without having to change and do a lot of stuff.
Yep, I used to use those easy clips, but when you slinging baits, sometimes that thing figure out a way to come off of that.
That's it. And that's why I said too, when even all the guys with that stuff, pay attention, keep you a pair of pliers on the boat. Keep everything good and tight. Don't allow there to be no little right here where this is good and tight. Make sure that stays like that. A lot of times, sometimes these things right here, if they come with a gap, you can start losing them like Chris was just talking about. So keep you a pair of pliers on the boat and make sure everything stays good and tight. Let's see. Going through and seeing if I've missed any questions so far, Chris, while you're getting that ready. No, I'm still in the same shop tonight. We just got the banner up in the back, and I'm still in the same shop.
Yep, there's a reason. There's a rhyme and a reason for a lot of all this. Sometimes people aren't really sure. They just think, oh, it's just all a gimmick.
Yeah.
But it's like we said, it's an evolution. It's adding one little thing, the next thing to try to figure out what could maybe help you get through stuff a little better. Trying to figure out what's getting hung up on your rig. and then trying to improve that part of the rig. The double hook rig is really for catching big fish when they are really after big baits.
Now, Chris, let me ask you this: are you using a double hook rig on everything, or just one or two rods?
October 1st, I start using them on 4 rigs, and then as the season progresses, which by November I'll be running 6 of them. Everything else I run single hook rigs with 10-aught hooks.
And guys, when we come out with this rig right here, the Jesse James rig, this is the first version that we came out with. A lot of people, I'm not gonna lie, man, I was getting texts like, man, what are y'all guys doing over there? You know, that looks very wild. And Chris, man, y'all boys were racking up. We've caught some huge.
This rig.
Yep.
This one's got a 9-aught hook. I use these for big head pieces. I'll use these for body chunks. I'll use these for smaller fillets. These are great for all those cuts of bait. You know, when I say a head piece, it's a big freaking giant head attached to this. This is a 9-aught hook.
And Chris, while you're holding that one up, this is the V2, guys, that we come out with. And I'm going to tell you a little something that I learned with the V2. And Chris, I know you probably is, you got cloudy days. You got days that clouds in and out. You got bright days. Just like the one that Chris is holding up, I love for those, you know, bright, sunshiny days. It gives it that little, you know, when the light hits, it gives it that spark. But when there's not as much cloud, this is something I found out with the bigger blade, it will give you that opportunity to find that sun or that light even more to cause that shine to hit it. So there's days that, you know, I'll take this big blade and I'll use it. There's days I'll take the smaller 2 blades and I'll use it. But both of these rigs right here, you know, like we were talking rigs, is people thought we were crazy, man. But guys, I'm telling you, this stuff will work.
We caught a lot of giants this past winter on those, and I convinced a number of guys on our boat that those damn things work. I guarantee you they work.
And I can guarantee you.
Says, where are you finding your big shad in cooler weather? So cooler weather, I find my big shad in the morning. They're piled into the deeper holes. You're looking in, if the water temps 50s and above, I'm looking in 35 feet, 35-ish, deep holes, channel in the channel. They're going to be in that little comfort zone where there's a depression in the river channel, where there's an actual channel that you can throw on, and they'll pile into those types of areas. The bigger ones are usually on the outskirts. They're not in the center of mass. The bigger ones, I don't know why they don't like to be with all the other ones. They like to kind of be out on the edges. So I throw on the edge of all that, on the ledge. That's where that depression is. Throw right on that ledge, and on the channel ledge. That's where I get them.
Chris, I want to touch up on something get back to this real fast. And guys, I saw another real good reason that I face these the way I do. It catches that water and causes this to twist. It's designed to be that way. If you turn these around, you won't get that compulsion and that twist the proper way too, guys. I want to make that, you know, that to me, that's the most important part of this whole design, is making sure it catches that water, it's floating proper way.
And the way that's designed, it's skinnier in the front, it's wider in the back. As that water is coming over the skinny part, it's forced to go over the wider part, and that's what's going to create spin.
And that's why I see, guys, the way these fins that we make them here at Carolina Lake Weights, we got even more of that curvature and we added another blade to these things, that's what makes it so much different than some of the other ones that you see. Um, but if you turn that thing around backwards, it's really not made and designed for that.
Yeah.
Now, keep that in mind too, guys. Like I said, I'm not knocking nobody else's styles. This is what works for us here at Carolina Lake Weights. That, just to give y'all a heads up on that also.
Richard, in the winter, I'm always looking at barometric pressure. I don't allow it to determine whether I'm fishing or not. I've had high barometric pressure days where we slaughtered fish. Now, they do bite different. And most guys, if you're not able to adjust on a high pressure day, you will get skunked or you'll catch one or two fish. But if you know how to adjust to those situations, you can still do really good on a high pressure day. You just got to put the bait down in front of their face. They're not going to chase it, so you got to slow down your presentation. You might have to downsize baits a little bit, sometimes a lot, but they bury down in the mud when the barometric pressure is high. They just start feeling lethargic. They don't move a lot. They just sink down to the bottom, and you can still do well, but you got to go real slow. You got to be on them. You got to put it in front of their face, and you got to downsize a little bit.
Chris, speaking on that point, now myself, there's rigs I'll go to for certain days like that. Do you have certain rigs that you might change up on days to go to, or is there's just like we were talking earlier about adjusting this up and down on your line?
That's the day I adjust it. High pressure day, I'm putting it close to the bottom. I'm even got some on the bottom. I've got some rigs that are on the bottom, and you will get hung up a lot more with a rig that's on the bottom, but you'll also catch more fish on a high pressure, no wind type day.
And that's, like I said, now you don't have to go, you don't have to retie nothing or nothing like that. Now you can just take it, guys, adjust it, just like Chris is saying, and you're ready to go and fish.
Yeah, Richard, all these rigs will work on high pressure days. They'll all work from the bank. They all work good.
Yeah.
Bank fishing's like anchor fishing to me. A lot of times I'm anchor fishing, I'm on the bank. And a lot of times I will put my boat on the bank and fish out the back of the boat.
Yeah. That's something I've done.
Like, man, we come out all the way out here to go fish on the bank. I'm like, yeah, but how are you going to get to this? I mean, we went and found the fish. This is where they're at. How are you going to find the fish if you're just driving around looking on the bank?
Chris, I get this comment all the time. Bank fishermen try to get their bait as far away from the bank as possible. Everybody on the boat is actually coming to the bank to fish.
I'll see guys fishing on the bank when I'm scanning, and they got their crap just slung way out. I'm like, I'll scan, and I'm like, and I'll pull up right close to them, and I can see they're kind of getting upset as I'm getting pretty close, and I'm like, right here, throw right here, or throw right over there. There's nothing out here where y'all stuff is. It's all right here. And I'll point them, I'll tell them exactly where to cast. And, I can see when I'm pulling up, they're pissed off because they're like, this MFer in this boat's coming right here. We're on the, but I'm just trying to help,
And sometimes, Chris, that drop off, man, is not as far out there as a lot of people think if they're off the bank. That thing could be right there off of you about 5 feet, 10 feet. That means a lot, man. When that thing starts to turn and drop off like that ledge, that means a lot too, guys.
And that's an ambush point.
Yeah.
That's ambush structure.
That's it.
But, if it's wind blown, a lot of times they're right up there in that where that waves crashing in because
that's it.
It's stirring up plankton, phytoplankton, moss, little mollusks, snails, and crap. And bait fish and smaller fish will move up in there to feed on that, and the bigger fish move up to feed on them. So,
and that's a lot of times them waves are washing these mussels up there. You got these crawdads coming off the banks, and they're getting, like you said, right there as that comes off that bank, the ambush points. So I mean, you don't have to be out there 100 yards.
Richard, I'm fishing 10 feet, generally up until. Depends, every year's different in Texas, but usually up and into November, I can be up in 10 feet, no problem. Water starts getting down into the 50s and bigger baits start grouping up really good. I move around where the majority of the big bait is. So it moves out into mid depth and will stay out there until the water gets into the low 40s. And when you get a really big cold snap, then everything moves deeper. Now, not all lakes are the same. If I'm up at Texoma next month, I'll be out 70 feet. I'll be in 5 feet on my lake. It's a weird lake. So not all lakes are the same. I think a really deep lake, they just fish a lot different than a mid-depth lake. If there's striper in it, they fish a lot different than if there's not striper in it. It's just a completely different pattern. The striper like to be deep.
And guys, if y'all have any questions so far about some of the rigs or some of the stuff that we've done so far, I'm looking through chat. Please, if you have any questions, ask away too, guys. Let's see.
Yep. It's October 1st. October 1st, I retie all rigs. I cut everything off from the summer. And I get everything fresh, all brand new hooks, brand new, I restring poles with fresh line. Because for us in Texas, as these cold fronts start rolling in, our big fish season starts really kicking in, and it's like at every trip type deal, and we start catching big fish. So that's one of the reasons we want to do the show tonight. It's time to re-rig for a lot of guys. This fall transition is about to happen. I hear it's already happening up north. Some of the guys back east are saying their lakes are turning over. It hadn't quite happened here. So
Rich,
as the lake turns over, it's usually big fish time.
Yeah.
Time to hammer them.
Like right now, man, I'm not going to lie. We got another tournament on October the 12th. I am relining 20-some rods right now, getting ready to take all the line, rig them all back up, changing everything over for the tournaments. Because, one thing, especially tournament fishing, man, or what you're doing, Chris, you want to keep an eye on that line. I mean, any little nicks, little, you can lose a big fish, guys.
Starting in October, you got a good chance of getting a 50 every trip. Well, if you don't have a quality leader that's not 100%, you get one over 50, 60, 70 pounds, that's when you're going to lose it. So, keeping that fresh line on all year, all season could mean the difference between 4 or 5 fish that you'll lose over 50. And to me, 4 or 5 fish, over 50 is a good amount.
That's it.
Just to check your line and be diligent about it makes a difference.
Richard, yeah, man. We got people that's winning tournaments. They're bank fishing tournaments by using a lot of what you've seen tonight with the spinners, with the rattles. We have a lot of guys that's winning tournaments from the bank by using the same setups that you have seen tonight. Especially if you have a lot of current, a little bit of current, these things are still going to work the same, man.
Jeff, I've heard a lot of guys use super glue on the knot. I haven't heard anybody having an issue with it. I get what you're saying about the chemical deal because when I started crimping, I had a lot of guys say, oh, you need to burn that tip so it bulbs out. Well, it didn't take long for me to ask some saltwater guides, and they're like, do not put heat to mono. It freaking lowers the break by well over 50% immediately. So I went ahead and tested it, and they were right. When you melt that freaking stuff, it weakens it. So I don't know that super glue does that, because a gazillion guys do super glue that easy, that simple Snell knot. I
will
don't
tell
see
you,
it being a problem.
yeah, I will tell you guys, I personally do not like super glue, but this right here is one I can tell you. My personal rigs, sometimes I will use this for 3 years. I've had no problems with it, guys. No problems.
It's pretty much super glue, similar,
So
though, right?
it's just got
A little more
different,
jellified.
more jellified, and it don't have that whiteness that some of the chemicals that the super glue has. It doesn't have that. This is more of a clear style. Almost you couldn't even tell it's ever on there, Chris.
Rich said lake there's approaching turnover. I thought our lake, I looked and it looked like 2 feet might have been a little turnover. We got 50-degree nights Monday and Tuesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know. It's only 50 high 50s 2 nights in a row. I don't know if that's enough to turn the lake over. What will probably happen is more of a mixing. When it mixes, it's a lot longer process than if it just goes ahead and turns over. Mixing, it's not great for fishing. Turnover's actually terrible for fishing, but at least it happens rapidly, and then when it's over, and you go start hammering fish. But we're getting closer, guys. We're getting closer. And the big thing that can negate that whole fall turnover is if it's turning over and you get a huge cold rain, and that will pretty much just turn everything on, and you'll be done with the turnover.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for. We had a turnover last year, but it only lasted a few days, and then we had a huge rain that just flushed it all, and the north end of the lake was fished really good after that.
Richard, no current fish is just like a lake. Brother, I can tell you, I've still heard some great results by the same, pretty much those same rigs, man. I've heard some great results just in that style of water.
I prefer to drag, so they work great for dragging.
That's it. And I'll tell you, that takes me back. Now, just like that blade, it doesn't take much whatsoever to take that blade and just do like that for that light to hit it, and they see that, and man, they'll tear it up.
Jeff, so sharpening hooks is actually way easier than you think. I don't have a hook sharpener on me, but
I don't either.
I'll show you how to do it. So a lot of these hooks have a needle point. Just the way they make these hooks now is they have a needle point. So here's a needle point, okay? When you're casting these and banging them around on your rattles and stuff, sometimes that needle point will get bent. And you'll either have to sharpen it, or you'll have to just file that needle point off and just make it a regular old point. And the way you do it is you're just going to go like this. It only takes three times on each side, and you're done. Just get you a little fishing hook file. It's 3 or 4 times on each side, and you're done. It'll be sharp as a freaking razor after that. And, that's one thing I do check while I'm fishing. Every time I catch a big fish, I put that tip on my fingertip. If it'll grab my skin, I feel confident that I'll catch fish. If I go like that and it's not, see how that thing's grabbing my skin right there? That'll puncture a fish. If you're rubbing it on that and it's not catching on your skin, I feel like you'll lose fish.
And
So
Chris,
that's kind of the way I test it.
on that point of the hook, guys, I see people do this all the time, man. After you do your bait, you put your bait on your hook, double check, take a second, make sure there's no scales, none of that over the top of that point, because I've seen people, man, with scales throw it out there, and I'm gonna tell you, sometimes you will not get a good hookup with trash on the tip of
I
your.
try to scale my bait for that reason too, because
Yep.
even if you get the scales off the hook and then you cast it, that thing will helicopter, and sometimes you'll get scales on your hook that way. And if you got a scale on the hook point, you will miss the fish every time.
Yeah, it's just take an extra second and check that, guys, because I'm telling you, you'll be like kicking yourself for not checking it.
That might be the one giant that you got for the day. So
That's it. That's it.
make sure that's damn sure something I make sure I don't have.
I've seen it happen to people more than once, man, and that's like, man, all you should took that one extra second, make sure everything was legit.
But Jeff, I used to change out my hooks often, but when I moved up to 80-pound leaders, I don't do it as often. I just sharpen my hooks now.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of guys say they change out leaders constantly. I haven't found that to be an issue with 80-pound leader line like it was when I used 60. 60 gets abrasions. 80 doesn't get abrasions like 60 does. Just doesn't. Even when I'm wearing them out, where we'll catch. Let's say we got a day where we catch 30 fish over 20 pounds, and we're catching a lot of 40s and a couple 50s. By the end of the day, that 60-pound mono, before I would be having to switch leaders before the day was out.
Yeah.
Now I can go all day long and run my finger on that. It's fine. It's just different. It's much different. 60 is much different than 80.
And that's why we run 80 on everything here, Chris. It's just because, like I said, you're moving this up and down. And I'm sitting here, and I'm going to tell you guys, I have played with this thing back and forth. And I can take my hand right here, and there is no abrasion on this. And I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's just as smooth as it come off the reel right there, guys. So everything, like I said, that's why we use 80 here also.
Yeah, the one thing I'm checking for is when you're slinging, because I don't just drop my baits in. I send them out there when I'm putting my boards out. And what'll happen is your hook, as you're sending stuff long, that hook will helicopter back into your leader. And if it's perfect, it can nick your leader. And that's when I'm checking my leader, that's pretty much what I'm checking for. It's for the nick from that hook can cause when you're slinging big baits.
That's it.
Or little baits.
Yeah,
if it can go wrong, it will on a big one.
You're right, Randall.
That's why you check. That's why you check the hook point. That's why you check the scales. That's why after every fish you check that leader, because the next one could be the biggest fish you ever caught, and that's when the flaw in the system is going to really rear its head.
Trying to look through chat right here. Chris,
yes. How do you change out the hook? Well, I don't typically do that, Jeff. Can't do it on a stinger rig. Single hook rig, if you've got long enough line, you can. I don't tie a simple snell. So instead of doing like an 8 wrap or a 10 wrap, I'll do an 8, 7, or 8 wrap on it. So I don't have to use as much line. But you do need to have pretty long leaders if you're going to be doing that.
Yeah.
I found it's just better to, carry it with you. What I do is I just carry rigs, pre-tied rigs, extra rigs. And when I got an issue, luckily Jamie, he sent me some, so I got rigs. When I got an issue, I just take it off and put another one on. Throw that one in the bag, and when you get home, cut it. Or when you're retying rigs, just cut all that stuff off and recycle it.
And Jeff, I'm gonna show you a knot. I mean a knot, just for that situation that you're talking about right there. It's a knot that sometimes, or you could use. It's basically take your line, run it through your hook. I take my finger, I'll hold it right here, take this part, and I'll wrap it. And I'll wrap it. So there, you've got it wrapped right there, right now. Then I'll take the end right here and run back through right at the eye. All right? Give me 1 second right here. And I'll run back through. I put her a little too tight. There we go. And I'll put me a little moisture on it, but see right here where my other hand is, I have a loop right here. I'll take this right here and bring it back through the loop, and then there you go. And I'll tighten this right here up a little bit more. It's you kind of can't see it on this camera.
Yeah, you can see it.
Right there. And that's what a knot that I'll tie on it.
You don't tie that because you got freaking 100 rigs in your boat. That
You're
was
right,
like
man.
cutting one off and tying a new one on.
You're right. So we just load. Hey, what we need to do is we need to load everybody up, guys. Y'all just get you a lot of rigs. You don't have to worry about that. Put the other one on and keep on rolling.
I will say that is nice to have some pre-tied ones.
Yes. Yeah.
For that specific reason right there, because it sucks being out there and running out of rigs in your bag or having to retie while you're on the water. And I'm 50 now, and I don't see as good. So I don't want to have to be tying a bunch of knots and retying rigs while I'm out there.
No, you're right, brother. It's I'm telling you, I say I'll do it sometimes. And when I say sometimes, might be only twice a year. That's it. Because that's why I have the tackle box I have. I probably got 200 rigs in that damn tackle box of mine. But yeah, pre-time.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Just pre-tie you a bunch at the beginning of the season when you're motivated. And I had pre-tied rigs all the way till the very end of the season, and it was the very last trip, and I was like down to the very last rig, and I'm like, perfect, because I believe this will probably be my last big fish trip, and it ended up being my last big fish trip. It played out perfect. So sucks if you're out there on the water having to tie a big fancy freaking rig the way I like them.
Yeah. Like I said, that might happen only twice a year, but I've probably got 200-300 rigs in my box, and that's what we go to.
Ryan, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man? It's almost go time, baby.
Guys, like I said,
I went and looked Sunday on the lake, man. It looked freaking terrible. I had a couple of buddies that fished. They didn't do too good. I got there late, so bait was very difficult. I got it off the bridge columns. Got some really good bait. Went and looked for fish for a good solid hour and a half. Scanned mid-depth, every piece of structure I could find in mid-depth. Never found a bait pattern. Went up shallow, never saw anything up there. I mean, I saw a few, never saw a big fish. Ended up going out on the main lake and getting on a main lake hump. I found fish on the hump. Fished a summer pattern. It was weird. they were nowhere near where I thought they were going to be. I end up having to just eventually think maybe I ought to try some areas where they shouldn't be, and end up that's where they were. So I don't know when that'll change. Usually right now, like I looked at, I'm always looking at what I did the year before. Last year we started catching big fish September 24th, and we caught big fish every trip after that. This year, I took September off pretty much, except for this past Sunday, and we caught 6. I only fished for one drag. I drugged that hump one time for about an hour, and we got 6 fish. 12 pounds was the biggest.
Ryan, you got you some CLWs in the mail today, boy. We appreciate you, man. I hope you enjoy those too, brother. Thank you so much.
Yep, it's about time. Ryan likes to get up in those freaking stumps.
Man, we love it. We love it.
He likes to stay close to the stump fields. So you got the right weights. They work good up in that crap. I looked up in there. I went way up in there, man. I went up all the way north into that stump field. I went to Pecan Creek stump field. I didn't mark crap in there, man. I marked one little group of probably channel cat. I don't know. They were pretty small. They were all pretty tight together. I think it was small channel cats, but fish the stumps, mini turtles. Yeah, Louisville doesn't have a whole lot of turtles. Well, not in the areas I fish. Yeah, get the hunting out of the way. I don't think you're going to miss it. I think we still got a ways to go here. Unless we get a big rain event. I know it's cooling down Tuesday, Wednesday, so might be some good fishing for a few days.
I'm going to try to get out there and do a little bit myself here real soon, do a little bit of hunting. I ain't been able to do that at all.
I was thinking about taking Jackson for his first trip. Don't know if he's quite ready, though, guys. Makes me nervous. He's a wild ass.
I told Rebecca, I said, with all these storms and stuff that we've had, all this high water that we've had, our rivers are blowed out again. I mean, we got more water coming down from North Carolina and places like that. I'm ready to hit the deer stand for a couple times before October the 12th.
Jeff, I looked all in. I went up in. I didn't go in Pecan Creek, but I went all the way to the sticks. Never marked any gar. I did mark the channel cat up. It's a group of channel cats up in there, but other than that, I barely marked any carp. My buddy's like, man, we've been up in here for 2 hours. I'm like, well, how many of y'all got? He said 0. I'm like, damn, y'all been fishing for 2 hours and you don't have a fish? I'm like, I ain't fishing up in here. And I scanned it. I was like, there ain't no fish up here. Like, you're in the wrong section, buddy. Okay, so how do you the stinger in the tail of the big bait seen hook roll back into body of bait? That's the trick. And last year I actually started doing a little trick where I heat shrink a little small circle hook, the reverse, so that thing doesn't spin. I don't have any rigged up this year. That's something I didn't show. But what I'll do, let me pull that one of these rigs back out.
Yeah, it's going to be full of boats out here this weekend for that U.S. Open King Mackerel Tournament. That's for sure, brother. Glad I do not mess with that out there no more. Wouldn't mind going sometime.
What you do is you put this one in the nose, Richard, and the stinger hook, you're going to dig that stinger hook in. So let's say you got the tail of the fish. You're going to dig that stinger hook in just to the top. And you're going to feed that thing all the way in. And then you're going to have that thing sticking out basically like that, except for it's going to be coming out the tail about like that. So if you don't and you got it up like this, you're right. That thing will often, when they're chewing on it or whatever, it'll fold back in and you'll lose your big fish. So I try to get that thing almost hanging out the back of that. That way, if it spins around, you still got the hook exposed. You just need to make sure you've got this long enough and get some poultry shears or some bait shears. And after you load your bait onto your rig, trim that back piece up away from this hook. So if it does spin around, it's clear of that and doesn't foul hook, because that's how this is not to catch small fish off a big bait, guys. That's not the idea. I hear all these guys say, yeah, you catch some. That's not what we do. We don't catch small fish with this rig. This is to help eliminate small fish.
Yeah.
But what really big fish do is they do an injury bite. They don't always just come up and eat it. A lot of times when you're presenting this as an injured fish or something that's dying, a big catfish is very similar to a shark. They'll come up and just crush that thing and just try to injure the hell out of it before they eat it. So they'll crush it. They may let it go, and then they'll come back and freaking nail that thing. And sometimes they just come up and clamp down and crush it. So their mouth is on it, and then you just kind of start pulling them. And you may get a couple of tail whips, and then that's where the stinger hook will help you catch those types of fish.
Chris, speaking of that stinger, I see a lot of people sometimes with that double hook rig. They take those things and they put the hooks so close to where you don't have no play from your top of your bait to your hook.
Like that?
Yeah, when they put their big baits on those, a lot of times they don't leave hardly no room for that fish when it comes up to bite down.
Yeah, I like this thing sticking out really out the back. And I know guys that stinger rig and they just leave this not even in the freaking bait.
Yeah.
They don't even put this in the bait. They just make it where this thing's riding right next to your bait, and then the fish just comes up and grabs it.
Yeah. So yeah, I
like to put mine in the bait. I want this back. I try to keep most of the hook exposed.
Yeah, and that's where some people I see Chris is messing up, man, because when that fish comes up behind and he grabs down, he doesn't have enough room for that pointing that hook right there to grab. Like how you're doing it, when he comes up and bites down, he's going to grab that hook.
Yeah,
and have no problem. So guys, just make sure don't put that thing so they're going close to the top of your bait where he can't get down on it.
So this is good for the injury bite fish, which is very often for giant fish. This is also good for no pressure days where they just come up and as they're laying there, and as this thing's going by, they just come up and clamp down and bite it. Okay, they're not turning. They're not doing any of that. You got this big 10-aught hook. Now, this is a 10. This is what most catfish this is the Carolina Lake Weights Action Jackson 10-aught. Most fish hook companies call this a 12-aught. This is a 10-aught. They lie to you and make you think you're getting this giant hook. It's most 12-aught catfish hooks are actually a 10-aught. This is a 10-aught. What that'll do is it'll help get that thing around. Let's say you got an 80-pounder, right? And there's an 80-pounder's tooth patch, right? What this 10-aught does is allows it to get around that tooth patch. So you can get an 80-pounder, even if you don't get him in the corner of the mouth. if it's just one of those days where they clamp down, you can get them on the top or bottom tooth patch.
Guys, there's a 12-aught right here. You match that up against that 10-aught, you see the difference. That is a true 12 to
So
a
that
true
12 is what a lot of guys are calling a 14 or a 16-aught.
Yep, and there's the other one that we have here, another 12-aught right here, guys. Right there. So that's true 12-aught hooks right there. So with the offsets, hell of offsets on both of them right there. So yeah, don't get caught up when people are telling you, oh, that's a 12 when that's a true 10.
I found that 10-aught will catch you anything from 20 pounds up to 80 pounds really good.
Yep.
Now, if you're around 100-pound class fish, you might not be able to get around the tooth patch on a 120-pounder, but I don't know. I've never hooked into one, so I couldn't tell you. Best Cooks, you're late to the party. Where you been, bruh?
Best thing, he must have been out fishing. Trying to go through to see if we've missed any comments or anything, guys, on Facebook or YouTube side. Looks like we pretty well have seen pretty much all of them. Work.
That's been working. Let's go fishing, man. I'm supposed to come fish Worth with Jesse Campbell Sunday, I think. I'm going to come fish with him and his boys. I figured if we're going to go before the lake turns over, that's probably a good lake to go hit up. So,
Chris, what hook size do you prefer for your eater size catfish?
I use 8-aught hooks because just in case I get a good one. Now, you won't catch a lot. Like, I've noticed a lot of guys that go after eaters, they'll keep a 2-pound fish. The majority of the fish are 2 pounds. When I'm catching eaters, I don't keep the whole mess. So I don't really want those 2-pounders. To me, an eater's like a 3 to 5 pounder. An 8-aught hook will catch plenty of 3 to 5 pounders. And it'll eliminate all those little dinks that I throw back anyway.
Yeah, that little 8 right there, man, will do one.
Yeah, a little 8. I would say a little 8. Which some people they calling it a 6-aught or whatnot.
And that's the thing, man, that I want to point out to a lot of people, guys. We're now you're seeing the difference in these hooks. Be careful. Sometimes people will say, "Well, I'm showing you a 9," when it's honestly a 10. So be careful and double check that, guys, because
you catch big fish with small hooks. You can catch small fish with big hooks.
There's a 6. Compared to an 8 right there, guys. You can see the difference. This is the 6. This is an 8.
I'd say if you want to catch the 2-pounders, the 6 will do it.
Yeah.
5, even 5, 5s. I never use 5s because I've caught big fish in the summer, and I don't, if you put a 5 in a tooth patch of a 60-pounder, you ain't catching him.
Yeah.
You won't catch him.
That's
you
it.
won't. You'll lose that fish every time. So, Ryan says match the hook with the bait, and that's somewhat true. You also match the hook with the size of fish that you're targeting because a 5-aught hook will not get around a tooth patch of a fish over 40 pounds. You got to hook it right in the corner of the mouth. You catch a 100-pounder off a 5-aught hook, but you better get it in the corner of the mouth. There is no standard for hook size, Bess. It's whatever the guy's trying to make himself, I use 12-aught hooks. Well, really? Because it's the size of this 10-aughts, these traditional 10-aughts. So I don't know, man. I wish they would standardize it, but that's not the case.
And that's just because you can't hardly tell. That's the 9-aught right there, guys. And I can tell you when you go grab right here. you got a 10 and you got a 9.
Very similar.
They're very similar.
9 is probably a good all-around hook where you can still catch a giant if you get lucky and hook into one. And then you can still catch plenty of 5-pounders off a 9-aught hook.
Yeah.
But for guys that don't catch big fish, they just want to catch eaters, a 3-aught, a 4-aught, a 5-aught.
Yeah.
That's going to catch the little dink. I mean, the lake's full of dinks. I can go catch 80 of them. If I want to go with a 3 or 4 or 5-aught hook, I can go catch 80 fish. I choose to eliminate all that.
And just like Billy,
get rid of all those little fish.
Yeah. Just like Billy, just put up the 10-aught. Guys, I'm going to tell you, I've caught 4 5-pound fish off the 10-aught hooks. No problem.
I got one this big off a 10-aught hook. I don't know how, but he was up somehow messing around with that big bait. I ended up hooking it in the mouth, a little 5-inch fish. It was the smallest fish I've ever caught off a big hook. So
I've
caught a lot of small. I mean, I've caught a lot of 1-pounders off of a 10-aught hook.
Yeah.
Now, it's not like you're going to go catch a bunch in the day, on a trip. Hopefully you're eliminating all that when you're using a big hook with a bigger bait. Top 777, welcome in, buddy.
Yeah, welcome in, my friend.
Richard says Lake Livingston, he won't eat anything over 5 pounds. It's too toxic. Well, y'all got the Trinity flowing into that thing. And I can tell you, I wouldn't even freaking eat a fish out of that Trinity. It's toxic. Bess uses 10-0 exclusively, except for I think he might be lying because he told me earlier that this year he uses some smaller hooks.
You know how I fish.
How would you though, Bess? Starting October 1st, I move everything to 10-aught. I don't care about catching small fish. And I use hook size and bait size to eliminate smaller fish. And that's what I'm hoping to do. I feel like starting October, I'm going for 3 good fish a trip. If I can get 1 or 2, I'm happy. I'm going for 3 good fish at the beginning of the transition. So as the cold kicks in, my expectations go way up from there. And I know yours do too.
I tell you, man, I'm ready to get back down there to Santee Cooper. I'm ready for some cooler weather, get the water right, ready to start hitting some more tournaments, that's for sure.
Man, I just want to get back to fishing. My son's been playing football on Saturdays, and it seems like now he's got every one of his little buddies has a freaking birthday in October. I told Mom, you're going to be taking him to the birthday parties, and he's like, well, I want to go fishing. I'm like, well, you want to go fishing or you want to go to your buddy's birthday party?
Can't do
He's
both.
like, that's not cool. I'm like, well, I'll give you the opportunity. You can come fish, but I got a feeling you're going to want to go to your buddy's birthday parties because, what kid doesn't like a birthday party?
That's it. Let's see.
Bess says he caught just as many on the 10-0s as he did the 8-aughts.
Yeah.
I typically go with the 10-aught starting October 1st. It's just become something of a tradition of mine. Come October 1st, I make sure I got fresh line on everything. I switch out all my summer rigs for winter rigs. I start making sure I got plenty of stinger rigs. If I go out on the lake and I'm starting to mark a bunch of tanks, you can bet I'm freaking going big. I'm going big. Trying to catch the biggest damn fish I can get.
Chris, I'm glad we.
Even with big baits, you catch 20 pounds. There's
Yeah.
a 20-pounder. You'd be surprised at how big of a freaking bait a 20-pounder can eat. And we even catch teeners off of a big 10-inch whole freaking bait. A teener will smash that. Now,
Oh yeah.
you don't get many in the teens when you fish that way, but I do still run some smaller stuff just to make sure I'm, getting some action.
That's right.
But come November, I pretty much eliminate all the smaller baits and just go big on everything.
Chris, I'm glad that we got a chance to bring up the subject tonight of all the rigs, and now we're talking about some of the hook sizes and stuff. And like I said, guys, I this is just my opinion only. Just like I said, I've seen so many people started turning these things around backwards. Yeah. And I wanted to really point that out.
No, they don't know.
Yeah. And I really wanted to point that out, guys, and say that our way might not be the right way, but I can tell you, if you match it up to one that's turned around backwards or to the one that's turned around forward, you will see a difference.
Ryan said he noticed today the weights were a little shorter than the old ones. So here's the deal, Ryan. There's a big shortage on lead. Jamie's got to go with the size lead he can get. And, that's the size that he could get to start building the weights this way.
Yeah, because we're building some of those here in-house now because of that same problem, Chris.
Now we're gonna see, because I'm about to run them.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna run them right next to my old ones. I'm gonna be honest, and if there's any freaking difference, what are we gonna do, Jamie?
I'm gonna make him right.
We're gonna fix it. So
that's right.
Right now it's a necessity because that's the gauge of the weights that they get. There's a shortage on it. You can't.
And you're only right now. You're talking about not even that much difference in them right now. Just that much difference in them.
So we'll see how it plays out, and if the old style, which are a little longer, actually come through more stuff, because there is something to downward pressure. That's why a 2-ounce gets hung up less than a 3-ounce. That's why a 3-ounce gets hung up less than a 4-ounce. You want to use the lightest amount of weight that will still pin your bait to the bottom. So, and then the length of it matters. If you got too long, you're leaving it in the snag zone a little longer. But if you got it too short, you got more downward pressure. So,
and I will tell everybody, for the 3 ounces, we've done more testing with the 3 ounces, and we have taken those and went longer with them because we found it was better. So we have changed those up. And like I said, the 2s, are just that much difference in the 2s right now. But the 4 or the 3s, we have changed up and taken them longer because of the testing. So those are working a lot better too.
We're gonna get it figured out, Ryan. We're always tinkering, testing, seeing. We want them to be optimal. So if they have to be lengthened, then Jamie will get a smaller gauge lead BB, and then we'll lengthen them. And
I can tell you from what we have heard, though, we've had no problems whatsoever.
So
everybody
is now they're single road, so maybe that creates a little less of a snag.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested. I'll be interested in finding out, because I dragged the stumps after the transition, and we're going to find out. I know how well the other ones worked, and I know
there's several people we've talked to, and everybody's been tremendous, because what we've done is we've taken away a lot of that bulkiness on the sides, made it more thin, and they've really started slipping through a lot more stuff, even better than what they had before. And everybody's been very pleased with them.
Richard, my leaders are 2 to 3 feet long.
And that's about the average size length on those too, Chris, as far as your leaders.
That's what I use. I'd say closer to 3 feet most of the time. You got to think if you got a 2 feet leader and then you got your stuff dangling a little bit behind it, and then it's not like your leaders float straight up. So you're at an angle, it's dangling a little bit. A 2 feet leader puts your bait about a foot off the bottom. A 3 foot leader puts your bait about 2 feet off the bottom. Think of it like that. So, I know guys that use even longer leaders and do well. Mickey Petrie, he's a freaking legend. He uses long leaders. He is fishing up at Texoma, fishing ledges and stuff like that. So I do know longer leaders work good on ledges. And my buddy Killer B that was in here earlier, he uses 4 foot leaders and does well.
Ryan, I think you're going to like that a lot better too, brother. I really do.
We're about to find out.
It's about to turn on, isn't it, Chris?
It ain't going to be more than 2 weeks before they really start firing up. I would think probably next week should be go time. I don't know. In Texas, you never know because it gets cool and it heats back up and lakes mix instead of turnover. It's just different here. We don't always turnover.
Kevin Waters is in the house. Kevin, I appreciate that. Man, Kevin says I drag him through some crazy stuff. I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, we get that a lot. I know I drag him through insane stuff. And
Kevin called me this week, and he got that phone bite is why I call it. He says, man, I'll call you back, bro. I'll call you back. And he was, they were on a fish.
Lucky phone bite?
Yeah, lucky phone bite.
So Richard says he's using a 5-ounce weight from the bank and a 2 foot leader. Just so many gar. Well, here's the thing. If you're around gar and you're anchored, you're going to get your ass handed to you. It's constant. The only really way to fish around gar is if you're dragging, because they like something that's laying there. They won't really – you will get a few gar pickups when you're dragging, but I can tell you I drag through giant schools of gar. Big blue cats follow gar around. Small ones don't because they are food for those things, but I catch a lot of fish over 40 around gar. And, the 380s we caught were all around huge groups of gar. What's up, bro?
What's up, bro?
Chris, Kevin Waters said he says, damn, I'm going to have to take a trip to Texas.
Yeah, come on down, Kevin. It's almost party time here.
What's up, Action Jackson's in the house. How you doing, buddy?
I'm ready to get on them.
You ready to get on them?
Yeah.
I know you getting ready to turn it up, man. I know you getting ready to do it to it.
What do you say, bro? What are we about to do here in Texas?
Smash the tanks.
Smash the tank.
And Chris, I want to say before we go tonight too, man, is guys, if y'all haven't checked it out, go check us out over at Carolina Lake Wakes. We got some cool stuff going on over there. All the T-shirts right now, all the hoodies are on Closet Cleanout. All the T-shirts is only $10. The hoodies are marked down to $7 or $15, and all fishing jerseys have been marked down to $30. We are making way for a lot of new stuff, so go check it out too, guys. Save you a lot of money.
Richard, you're down there fishing Livingston. There's big alligator gar. You might just want to rig up for them. Let them run with it, man. They're as fun or more fun to catch than blue cats anyway. They get a lot bigger.
I ain't lying, man. Y'all caught some nice ones this year, Chris.
Yeah, Bess, we actually need a cold front to set them off. I did see next week we got some nighttime temps in the 50s. I don't believe it's going to be enough to really flip the switch. It might flip the switch for a few days, but hell, for us guys that got to work all week, that don't work. Monday, Tuesday, cool front, it's not going to be working for us by the weekend. So I'd say we're 2 cold fronts away. It's going to be, I don't know, it'll be probably 3rd weekend in October. Hopefully we'll get a good cold front. I looked last year, our lake turned over on the 15th. I fished on the 15th. The lake was turning over. We fished the pea soup line, and we smoked them. And then I looked, and it was pretty much every weekend after that. We started going up to Texoma, I think, the last weekend in October. We lighten them up there. So as soon as that lake flips over, we'll get it together, buddy, and we'll head up there and see if we can go catch some Texoma lake monsters.
As I was going back through, looks like I think we've answered all the questions too.
Well, I'm chomping at the bit. I love watching my son play football, but I'm ready for big fish season to kick in full force.
Me and you both, brother. Like I said, October 12th, we got our first night tournament. We're going to kick it off. Then we got a couple of King Cat Cabela tournaments, so we're ready to go.
Well, anything you want to plug before we go?
Man, I just want, like I said a while ago, guys, go check us out over at Carolina Lake Weights, man. We've marked down. You don't need no codes or nothing like that for the hoodies or the t-shirts or the fishing jerseys. Everything's already been marked down. No codes needed. We've got, like I said, we're stocking up. We've been getting everything ready up on the rigs. Everything should be back in stock. I want to say thank you to everybody for all the rigs and the drifting weights, guys. Is all back in stock now and ready to go. So definitely go check us out, guys. And also check us out on TikTok, YouTube, and of course, Facebook.
Well, 4-Digit Fishing says he's bank fishing up at Texoma and he's itching for it to kick off. You know, it actually kicked off after that last front up there, but it only lasted about 4 or 5 days, and then they scattered again. So need a big hard front, big cold rain. It should be on up there. You know, Texoma always turns on. It's our first lake in Texas that turns on. It's usually 3 or 4 weeks ahead of everywhere else. So you should be real close. You know, I think this next front that's hitting Monday, Tuesday should get y'all going if you can get out there. Juan, what's up, bro?
Kevin, let us know, brother. We'll get you taken care of on some more of those monster catfishing shirts, man. Yeah, they're y'all, man. You going through a lot of them, brother. Let us know, man. We'll get you taken care of, brother.
4-Digit said he'll be out there for sure. Yep, I'll be up there soon, man. Won't be long. I was thinking about hitting it this next weekend, but I thought, not quite time yet. So I'm going to wait till I hear that the lake's turned over, and then I'll be up there the next weekend after that. So, well, guys, appreciate everybody stopping in, spending some time with us. It's been fun, as always. I had a great time. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Jamie?
Man, I've had a blast, guys. Appreciate all of everybody that stopped in tonight to talk with us and ask questions. And hopefully something we've showed tonight or talked about has helped you to increase your game even more, guys.
Yes, sir. Guys, I'll be out in the water this weekend with my teammate, Jesse Campbell. He's Carolina Lake Weights teammate. He's Mad Cat's teammate. We're going to be fishing Lake Worth, so hopefully we can get on something big. Appreciate everybody stopping in. Tight lines. God bless. Azul out.
Later, y'all.